And since this judgment, some Esther occupiers, without prior consent to engage meaningfully with owners or persons in charge of the land, have improved or erected new structures where they live. Those who know you appreciate the ferocity of your work ethic, your keen eye for detail, and the thoroughness of your approach. Your judicial method left no stone unturned. Your commitment to imparting knowledge of skills to legal practitioners throughout the country is something that, as the National Association of Democratic Lawyers, we are appreciative of. How can I forget your commitment to imparting skills to Free State practitioners by accepting an invitation to give constitutional litigation seminar in Bloemfontein in 2019. This is a demonstration of your commitment to ensure that legal practitioners are upskilled. South Africa's history is marked by a struggle against oppression and injustice. Today, we should reflect on the profound journey of justice and democracy in South Africa. Our nation's history is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the relentless pursuit of equality and freedom. As Nadel, we remain committed to the transformation agenda and the vision set out in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. We affirm our adherence to the principles of non-racialism, non-sexism, freedom, democracy, equality, justice, and fairness. Nadel, on behalf of all those whose lives have been and will be touched and inspired by you, expresses deepest gratitude to you for your service, leadership, and unwavering commitment to justice. We wish you a retirement filled with joy, fulfillment, and well-deserved relaxation. May your distinguished legacy endure the generations to come as a source of inspiration for all. The jurisprudence of this court is richer for your efforts. With those few words, thank you.
Advocate Ntla Pomerado of the General Counsel of the Bar.
Chief Justice Maya, Acting Deputy Chief Justice Madlanga, Justices of the Constitutional Court, with your leave, may I incorporate all protocol that has already been observed for the sake of brevity without amputation. From rural Njinjini outside Kwapata in the Eastern Cape, hailed Mbuyiseli Madlanga, who would later ascend to be the Acting Deputy Chief Justice of the highest court in our land, serving it with admirable distinction and dedication. Justice Madlanga's judicial career traverses over 2 parts, and in my millennial opinion, this is simply epic stuff. For the first part commenced in 1996, when in our toddler democracy, Justice Madlanga was elevated to the bench at 34 years of age, making him the youngest member of the South African judiciary at the time. Phase 2 was when destiny brought him back to the Constitutional Court in 2013, because one cannot escape greatness when it has been bestowed upon them. His incisive and cutting-edge judgments bear testament to this, such as the Bwanya versus Master of the High Court and Helen Suzman Foundation versus the Judicial Service Commission, to mention but a few. The General Council of the Bar of South Africa, the GCB, will eternally hold Justice Madlanga in high esteem for his intellectual and academic prowess. The GCB noted approximately 3 years ago, in 2022, that a majority of the judgments penned by Justice Madlanga, at the time there were 21 and the number has since risen, has enjoyed unanimous concurrence. A further testament to his excellence in leadership and, dare I say, persuasive skills. In addition to all these attributes, Justice Madlanga holds an important judicial philosophy. On 27 August 2020, when he was interviewed on an online platform titled Anchored in Law, Justice Madlanga, and when asked how he would describe his judicial philosophy, Justice Madlanga replied that it is a philosophy deeply rooted in justice, or a sense of justice. He acknowledged that the law does not always coincide with justice, but a judge should move or be motivated by doing justice between person and person. When responding to what would be his most significant contribution to the law and pursuit of justice in his 2022 JSC nomination, Justice Madlanga's response was, and I quote, "I truly contend when at the conclusion of a matter, I feel justice has been done. I say this not as a cliche, because even if our approach to the law cannot be faulted, not everything we do has just outcomes. The law does not always coincide with justice. I believe that I have an instinct for what is justice, and that is what motivates me in my exercise of the judicial function. Many times, that intuitive reaction has helped make a difference and bring about just outcomes where it matters most. And that is in the lives of the vulnerable and marginalized. This, Justice Madlanga, is the legacy that you leave us with. That where justice can and should prevail, it must. From the General Council of the Bar, Ndlelanhle, Khatebe, Bungani, Zigode, Gobizembe, Makhulukhulu, Enkosi, thank you.
I shall now call upon Dr. Chabedi SC of the Legal Practice Council to come forward and deliver their tribute.
Not Dr. Chief Justice. It got, yes. Honorable Chief Justice Mandisa Maya, our guest of honor, Acting Deputy Justice, Chief Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, the esteemed members of the judiciary, including justices of the Constitutional Court, justices of the Supreme Court of Appeal, judge presidents of all our provinces, judges of our high courts and magistrates, esteemed members of parliament and various state organs, colleagues in the legal profession, distinguished guests, might I mention His Excellency, Mr. President Mbeki, the Honorable Minister of Justice, Minister Kubai, former Chief Justices, Deputy Justices, former Justices of this court, all protocol observed, as they say. On behalf of the Legal Practice Council, I wish to express our sincere gratitude to the Constitutional Court for the invitation to participate in this special sitting. It is a privilege to be part of this momentous occasion as we honor and celebrate the remarkable judicial journey of Justice Madlanga. It is fortuitous that it was a day after today, 12 years ago, 1 August 2013, that Justice Madlanga left the profession, lifted directly from the Marikana Commission, where as senior counsel at the time, he served as evidence leader with some of our esteemed colleagues present today to become a judge of this court. I was also part of the teams that were representing government at the time, and it was an honor to work alongside Justice Madlanga as senior counsel at the time. Today, as the judiciary says goodbye to him, applauded on the sidelines by most of us, Justice Madlanga descends from his position as acting Deputy Chief Justice of this court to once again join a commission of inquiry, this time with a louder and much, well, what can I say, controversial task laying ahead of him, and this time leading the commission as the chair. What a moment in history. As a person, Justice Madlanga loves a good laugh, but some of us that have always been his juniors, we've never known exactly what he was laughing about, but I guess Advocate Nzevesa SC, who was always huddled at a corner with him, and then you'll hear a booming laughter. He will be able to share those jokes. Unfortunately, as I stand here on behalf of the Legal Practice Council, we do not have a sense of humor, but we are just here to celebrate your journey. What is happening today is a testament to Justice Madlanga's career of excellence, resilience, and unwavering commitment to South Africa's constitutional values in service to its people. His journey through the legal profession has served as a powerful example of what is possible with intellect, integrity, and dedication where it converges. His path has inspired countless practitioners, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds, to pursue justice with courage and conviction. Throughout his judicial tenure, Justice Madlanga has consistently demonstrated a deep understanding of the law as a tool for transformation. I will not go, the Chief Justice has already set out the judgments that have set a different path for jurisprudence in South Africa. His judgments have illuminated the importance of interpreting legal principles through the lens of human dignity, equality, and constitutional integrity. His work challenged outdated doctrines, strengthened democratic participation, and reinforced the independence of our institutions. Beyond the courtroom, Justice Madlanga has contributed significantly to legal education, public accountability, and scholarly discourse. His leadership and advocacy have helped shape the intellectual, ethical foundations of our legal community. As he steps down from his role as acting Chief Justice, we reflect not only on his legacy, but also on the values that he has championed and repeated by those who spoke before me: dignity, equality, independence, and justice. Independence, I underscore that. That's a value that I personally learned from Justice Madlanga. His career has been a beacon for many in the legal profession, reminding us that excellence and integrity are not only attainable, but essential. Justice Madlanga's retirement from the bench marks the beginning of a new chapter in public service. His appointment as the chairperson of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the alleged infiltration of law enforcement and intelligence institutions by criminal syndicates is a testament that trust placed in his leadership and judgment. We are confident that he will approach this critical task with the same clarity, independence, and commitment that have defined his career. Justice Madlanga, the Legal Practice Council thanks you for your immense contribution to the legal profession and the judiciary. Your legacy will continue to inspire generations of legal practitioners and judges. We wish you peace, fulfillment, and continued impact in your next chapter. Ke a leboha.
Thank you, Ms. Shabeti, and now I invite Advocate Sikakane SC of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa.
Chief Justice, Justice Meyer, Acting Deputy Chief Justice, the celebrant today, with Russell, Madlanga, former Chief Justice, my homeboy, Nyamezeli Raymond Zondo, former Deputy Chief Justice, Msenege, former President, President Mbeki, my sister, Togo Didiza, the Speaker, and my sister, the Minister, and all judges present and magistrates present here, and colleagues and everybody. Nabo Khadebe. Khadebe, ngicabanga ukuthi kufanele sisho okokuqala ukuthi sizindondonye ifuba, siyaqhatsha, siyazidla umsebenzi owenzile. Ngicabanga ukuthi indima oyikhathulile kwezomthetho nezokuba umahluleli ikhombise abantu ukuthi ukuba umahluleli ezweni elikhululekile uyini, nokuthi umkhombandlela walaba abaphethe abamajaji ekwenzeni ukuthi inkululeko yabantu ibe ilokho eyayifanele ibe yiko. I'm going to quote you in order to celebrate you, not your judgment, but I'm going to quote a statement that you made on the 17th of November 2019 in an important paper that I think generations will have to read about diversity. Of course, you quote and borrow from the dissenting judgment of Justice Thurgood Marshall in it, and you say this: imagine a man of extremely limited means. He shares a small apartment with his family, his wife, his mother, his sister, and his two small children, one of whom suffers from cystic fibrosis. His wife stopped working because of her pregnancy, and is now focused on caring for the sick child. The man was fired from his job as an insurance agent when the insurance premiums he collected were stolen from his home. When he was unable to make up the sum, his former employer filed a claim against him. Although he has since diligently looked for work, the bad reference from his former employer has made it impossible for him to find another steady job. His family survives entirely on public assistance. His only assets are the clothes he wears, some essential household goods, and a couch in storage. This man desperately seeks to file for bankruptcy, including discharge of the debt he owes to his former employer, so that he and his family can make a new start in life. Due to his poverty, however, he cannot afford the filing fee, which you describe as the filing fee as comparable to the revenue stamp that was used to be required when filing summons or an application. He cannot pay it as a lump sum. He cannot pay it in installments. He cannot borrow money to pay it. He is utterly without options. Close quote. I say this is an epic definition of diversity because in this article you grapple with diversity. And you have brought that in this court. And diversity not because of race or class only, but because diversity means the accommodation of different modernities and different epistemic traditions into a court. And you bring that not because you bring your race, because you bring the spirit of your village, of your township. It would not be diversity if you didn't do what you've done so well in the past decades, which is to bring to this court not your race only, not your gender, but the epistemic paradigms of your people in the village. Because diversity would mean nothing. Would mean nothing if the new assimilated into the cognitive traditions of the old. All we would be is just a group of people, different colors and genders, but all swallowed in Eurocentric approaches of ways of being and ways of seeing. And you have brought that. You have brought to this court something we will be proud of. Dissent, frowned upon by many. But Pius Langa told us that the world was moved by those who dissent, the lone voices. And we as the Pan-African Bar Association appreciate what you've been to this court. We hope that your retirement, which is usually splendid solitude, for one to do the things they have not been doing, for one to reflect, and for one to seek forgiveness for errors that they've made in the stormy ways of life, and sometimes to seek purgatory before they go to heaven. Well, I don't know about you and splendid solitude. You're standing right now at the feet of the beast into whose belly you're about to jump. But your qualities that we celebrate today will stand you great. Those qualities of humility, the ability to listen to others. Most of us like the fact that in this court, in you and others, we found people with our common epistemic backgrounds who could see when we were upset, who could sympathize with us, and we were not invisible to them. You loved the poor, you worked for them, because poverty is not the absence of resources and money, it's the absence of dignity, being invisible to those who dominate the discourse. Lastly, I want to say to you, Mkhulu, you may not be religious, but I know Ngumwesi. I want to close with a quote by Winfrey Phipps for you, which says this: "It is in the quiet crucible of your personal private sufferings that your noblest dreams are born, and God's greatest gifts are given in compensation for what you've been through." And with those words, I want to thank you, Nohatebe, and everyone, Nosisi, and everybody, because in you we saw a reimagined South African with an ability to unlearn wrong things that we were taught about each other. We want you to handle that, and please fight the beast that in whose belly you are about to jump. Thank you.
Thank you for those valuable reminders, Mr. Skakani. May I now invite the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Batoyi.
Thank you, Chief Justice Maya, Acting DCJ, Justice Madlanga, Ex-President Mbeki, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Minister Kubai, esteemed members of the judiciary, past and present, colleagues in the legal profession, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We gather here today not to merely mark the end of a judicial term, but to recognize a lifetime of principled service, and to acknowledge the contribution of Justice Madlanga and what he has made in terms of the preservation of the rule of law, which is being stress-tested globally, and sadly we are no exception. Justice Madlanga has brought to the Apex Court not only intellectual distinction, but also, as we've heard so much today, about his deep humility and humanity. I had the honor of working with Justice Madlanga way back in 2007, then as senior counsel that he was. We were part of a 4-person team set up by the then Acting National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Mshe, to review and provide an opinion on the strength of the corruption case against then National Commissioner of the Police, Commissioner Selebi. Through his conduct, Justice Madlanga demonstrated that one can be brilliant without arrogance, principled without rigidity, and powerful without being overbearing and domineering. He has reminded us all that the rule of law is not an abstraction. It is a living commitment to fairness, to accountability, and to justice for all. A prosecutor's mandate to upholding justice without fear, favor, or prejudice is hollow without a judiciary that protects constitutionalism, defends the independence of institutions, and ensures that power, whether public or private, is exercised within the bounds of law. Justice Madlanga has been one of the most steadfast defenders of that vision. Through his judgments, which we've heard a lot about today, through his legal philosophy and his unwavering integrity, he has also strengthened the constitutional framework within which institutions like the National Prosecuting Authority operate. Notably, in his 2018 judgment, which Justice Maya referred to, Corruption Watch and others, Justice Madlanga recognized the need for a stable National Prosecuting Authority. He decried the damage that unending instability faced by the NPA at the time, and might I add, in the throes of state capture, could bring not only to the office of a national director, but also to the National Prosecuting Authority as an institution. His decision was informed by the need to ensure that NDPPs have the necessary fortitude, resilience, and character not to be swayed by exorbitant settlement offers. Whether in matters of institutional independence, executive overreach, or prosecutorial accountability, Justice Madlanga has stood firm in defense of the Constitution. He has understood that the rule of law does not merely restrain unlawful power. It empowers institutions to perform their functions effectively without political interference or intimidation. His clarity in articulating the limits of power and the responsibilities that flow from public office has offered a steadfast moral compass, not only for the judiciary, but for prosecutors, police, public officials, and every citizen committed to constitutional democracy. Judge Madlanga, you have reminded the nation and those in power that independence is not a luxury. It is a constitutional necessity. We continue to advocate for the NPA's financial and operational independence, which the Minister is supporting and addressing, and this is a strategic imperative which most likely resonates with the judiciary. I know Judge Zondo definitely, which has pursued its operational independence for several years and which has advanced most significantly under the current Minister. In ensuring that justice is served and the rule of law, which is a pillar of our constitutional democracy, is strengthened, the prosecution does not act alone. It requires that the entire system works and that justice and accountability wins at the end of the day. And in this, the judiciary plays a critical and pivotal role. This was very recently illustrated by the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal in State v. Tabete and others, the so-called Nulane case, one of the first state capture matters that the NPA prosecuted. In brief, as this august House will recall, the High Court judgment in this matter resulted in the acquittal of the accused. The court arco claiming in one of its many scathing comments that the prosecution had committed a comedy of errors. Following the judgment, the NPA's reputation was trashed by clickbait-happy journalists and analysts. 6 weeks ago, the SCA overturned this judgment. It found some of the court's ARCO's findings to be baffling, irrational, and inexplicable. It regarded the acquittal of the respondents to be unfair to the prosecution and a decision that compromised the administration of justice. Put differently, and drawing from your judgment this morning, Judge Madlanga, the trial court failed in its duty of proper consideration. Such decisions have a devastating impact on the rule of law, which you hold so dear, and many of the justices present, if not all. The SCA judgment has somewhat restored the confidence in the rule of law. As prosecutors, we rely on the firm resolve of an independent judiciary to ensure that cases move swiftly through our courts, whilst ensuring a fair trial. Fair not just for the accused, but also for victims and witnesses. And in the case of corruption, the country is the victim. In your important final judgment this morning, Judge Madlanga, you once again emphasized the importance of a fair trial. Both our apex court and the SCA have pronounced on this, holding that fairness is not a one-way street, conferring an unlimited right on an accused to demand the most favorable treatment but it also requires fairness to the public, as represented by the state. This does not mean that the accused's right should be subordinated to the public's interest in the protection and suppression of crime. However, the purpose of a fair trial provision is not to make it impracticable to conduct a prosecution. We've heard much about your efforts in training and empowerment, Judge Madlanga, and I want to thank you for participating in the NPA training that we organized with the Bar Council. You were kind enough to participate and provide guidance on how prosecutors need to be meticulous and objective in decision-making, and which was particularly insightful, given that you yourself are a former prosecutor. As you conclude your term, Judge Madlanga, you do so with immense gratitude of the nation. You have contributed to the protection of our institutions, which you will continue in your work as the chair of the upcoming Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference and Corruption in the Criminal Justice System, which will become known as the Madlanga Commission. The criticality of this commission cannot be overstated. Corruption and unethical conduct has infected too many corners of our institutions in the criminal justice system. Also oversight bodies and the very structures meant to protect us. As it is said, in every crisis there's an opportunity. And I would urge that the Commission does not wait until the end of its work to refer matters for criminal investigation, which will help us clean up our institutions and rebuild them to properly serve the people of our country. We need to rebuild the social compact where trust is restored, corruption is rejected, and we all play a part to create a safer, fairer society. On the behalf of the NPA, Judge Madlanga, I want to thank you for everything, for all your contributions on behalf of the people of South Africa. You've given us powerful jurisprudential foundation to build upon, and your legacy will continue to be a guiding light. I thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Batui. And now the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Ms. Kubai, MP.
Thank you very much. Let me acknowledge Chief Justice Mandisa Maya, former President Thabo Mbeki, the Acting Deputy Chief Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, our celebrant, current Justices of the Constitutional Court and former Justices, President of the Supreme Court and Justices of the Supreme Court of Appeal, heads of courts and all members of the Judiciary, the National Director of Public Prosecution, Advocate Batui, legal practitioners, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be part of this very auspicious occasion among very distinguished jurists, legal practitioners, legal scholars, and leaders to mark the retirement of a distinguished jurist on behalf of the executive arm of the state. It is always difficult to do justice when one pays tribute to a person who has done so much for the legal profession, the development of jurisprudence of the country. On behalf of our government, let me take this opportunity to thank you, Justice Madlanga, for the distinguished service you have rendered for our country. The people who have gathered here and those who joined us last night at the dinner in marking your retirement are a testament to the important role you have played in the strengthening of our constitutional democracy and making our country a more just society. As we gather here, we're marking your retirement as well as we know that it's not really a retirement, but just a step off for a second and into another role, as everybody has been saying last night as well. But we're marking an era, an end of an era in terms of service to humanity and to another. You might have delivered your last judgment today, but I know as a matter of fact that this is not the last time that you are going to weigh the evidence, listen to witnesses, and deliver a decision in many areas. The years that you have spent in the bench interpreting our laws and ensuring that the South Africa of today and tomorrow is more just society than the South Africa of yesterday, contributed to a vision that was conceived 17 years ago that said in the Freedom Charter, all shall be equal before the law. You served in the Constitutional Court for the years, 5 years, but in the capacity you authored just under 60 judgments, overwhelmingly. Your judgments are either anonymous or command the majority. The judgments relate to many of the weighty issues the court has pronounced upon in our constitutional democracy, such as the implications of the Constitution for contract law and for marriages concluded under customary law, the duty of Parliament to facilitate public participation in legislative processes, the constitutional privilege for free speech and immunity from arrest of members of Parliament, the obligation of the IEC to record voters' addresses on the voters' roll, the entitlement of candidates to stand for election to public office without being attached to a political party, the constitutional right of a farm worker, Ms. Daniels, to effect improvements to her modest home to make it habitable in the absence of the landlord or the landowner's concern. This judgment, Justice Madlanga, graphically describes the pain, indignity, and injustice of land disposition in South Africa, an open wound that occupies the center of our constitutional democracy today. Justice Madlanga carried out his responsibilities with the understanding that our country has a past which was characterized by injustices that have shaped our present and will continue to shape South Africa's realities for a foreseeable future. Thus, his judgments have lived to the preamble of our Constitution, which says, I quote, "We, the people of South Africa, recognizes the injustices of our past, believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights." In the few months I've worked with you, Justice Madlanga, directly, I've learned a lot, but most importantly, observed how you pay attention to details. Your precision in every task you take or embark upon is remarkable. As Chief Justice Maya said last night, you led a successful celebration of 30 years of our Constitutional Court. I must say, Chief Justice Maya, Acting Deputy Chief Justice has earned a nickname in my team of being a Judicial, working with energy and a steam that doesn't run out. Your work ethic and humility that allows you to work with anyone, irrespective of their title or the office they hold, is remarkable. You are indeed a rare breed, and they don't come often with such qualities. As I have already mentioned, your retirement here today just means you're going to serve your country from a different institutional arrangement. I know that when your country calls you to serve, you will do so without hesitation, as you have already done. As I sit down, let me quote Ngwame Nkrumah, who said, "Those who would judge us merely by the heights we have achieved would do well to remember the depth from which we started," unquote. You are a testament of a journey of perseverance, discipline, dedication, hard work, but most importantly, loyalty to your country. We wish you well in your future endeavors. Once again, thank you very much for your contribution. Khatebe, Bungani, Mtimkhulu, Jabulela.
We concur, Minister. Thank you. And now I grant the man of the moment his right of reply, if any.
I will not do what I usually do today. I will do the protocol properly, and this will be for the first time. His Excellency, former President Mbeki, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Honorable Ms. Kubai, MP, Chief Justice Maya, seated right next to me, the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Justice Mulimela, Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Justice Zondi, Justices of the Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court of Appeal, Judges President and Deputy Judges President, esteemed members of the Judiciary, retired Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Justice Zondo, retired Deputy Chief Justice Museneke, and all the retired justices of the Constitutional Court, retired Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Justice Petse, Advocate Nsebeza SC, Judge of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Batoi, heads of Chapter 9 institutions, Acting Secretary General of the Office of the Chief Justice, and other Directors General present here today, members of the legal fraternity, and distinguished guests. I should greet my family as well. Good morning. I still can say so. It's just before 12 midday. Let me start with more thanks in addition to those of yesterday. I want to thank my colleagues who were in the committee that organized yesterday's and today's ceremonies. Yesterday, everything was simply amazing. Colleagues, many thanks. I also want to thank all colleagues who spoke at yesterday's dinner. Their speeches were touching, humbling, and wonderful. Colleagues, you all made me emotional. This is true of even brief interventions by Justice Zuki Chipri and Justice Steve Majid, who were not speakers, but only the program directors, and also of Justice Kolapen, who proposed the toast. Hearty thanks, my dear colleagues. Mandi, you did the same today, and I have no idea how you did so. The two moving speeches were not identical, and yet they were quite substantial. I am not ashamed to say publicly that today you brought tears to my eyes. Anybody who was looking would have seen me shielding my eyes with my hand. Dibulela okungazenzisiyo ungani. To you, Minister, and all other speakers of today, if only I had 1,000 mouths, I would be able to say a much better thank you. My one mouth is simply not enough to thank you. In my language, let me say in this Swahili milomo, yanga Ngeiliwaga. Let me say this to Advocate Moses Ikakane SC. This comes from religious text. You seemed to doubt that I'm Kia leboga ho lona kaofela. Yesterday, I thanked veteran attorneys who, through a steady flow of briefs, helped establish our practices and mold us young practitioners into the lawyers we eventually became. One such veteran attorney to whom I must extend words of gratitude is Dumisa Tsebeza, who was an attorney then, but is senior counsel now, and a justice of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. He cared for our growth. He went out of his way to make sure that that became a reality. Diabulela mzala wam, ibamba ngazibini thuse. Now, my chambers. Over the years, I have had many law clerks. I see some of them there. What a wonderful lot of brilliant, highly intellectual, challenging, engaging, tolerant people who would very politely tell me sometimes that my reasoning was nonsensical. Team MRM, as I call them, you made my work so much lighter. You helped infuse quality in whatever I produced. I say you were tolerant because I am a hard taskmaster. I would give you deadlines that were sometimes near impossible to meet. You always did your utmost under most challenging circumstances. I would give you instructions at the oddest early hours of the morning, sometimes saying, give me your responses when you arrive at work. To my surprise, you would sometimes respond during those crazy hours. Many, many, many thanks to you. And now, the executive assistant, who before that title was my PA for many years, Usbongile Dube, whom I call Sbo. Sbo, I will miss your fussing over me. I will miss the way you babysat me in and outside of the chambers. Whenever I would be going on assignments outside of chambers, Sbo would go ahead of me to make sure that I would arrive to a welcoming environment. And sometimes she would embarrass me by making demands on the people who would be receiving me and say, do you have a holding room for the acting Deputy Chief Justice? Do you have this? And so on. Of course, it was well meant. Sbo, you have been the best PA and executive secretary I could ever have wished for. Sbo is known by every member of my family, and she also knows all of them. My children love her, and they call her Mama. 2 days ago, one of them said, Tata, we must organize a party for Uma Musbongi. You can't just part ways without a party for her, close quote. Ibonga kakhulu, kakhulu kakhulu Sbo, nangamso besinto. To my family, I thanked you yesterday, but let me, in one word, do so again and say I am truly grateful to have you as my family and as my support structure. Thank you very much. And let me address myself directly to my aunt, Auntie Wam, who is the last born child in my mother's family. Auntie, you are our only remaining parent, our only mother, and you play that role. Thank you very much, Auntie. And where did it all start? The Chief Justice mentioned it. She actually quoted me on what I said about how I came to study law. It started with my parents, in particular my father, who directed me in the direction of studying law. It was a good direction, I think, because I think if he was still alive, he would have been very proud of the achievements that I have managed to attain. Likewise, my late dear mother, she also was a very important support structure in my formative years, and indeed even in my later years. Nurturing, loving. So without those beginnings, without that kind of growth under her, without the values that she instilled in me and my siblings, I doubt that I would have become the person that I became. So I'm truly grateful to my parents as well. I might add that probably my father sent me in the direction of law because even though he was not a lawyer at all, no legal training whatsoever, he was somewhat of a lawyer. He was a school principal. And about the lawyering, he really enjoyed attending imbizos where cases would be heard by the entire community. And that is how he too would participate. Those that were on the other side and not supporting his argument were always in trouble because his submissions at those imbizos always ensured that the side he was on won. I remember one occasion, a new headman in our village was against my father in a land dispute in our area. And as usual, my father won the dispute. And he went to that headman and said to him, if you want to be a good leader in this community, you must lean on this shoulder. And he patted himself on the shoulder. That was Ubud Vuyani Paula, our then headman. He is late now. From that day, Ubud Vuyani indeed took my father's counsel on many issues, and they became friends. Something else that also demonstrates that with him there was this instinct that was very akin to how a lawyer would act. If we, as children, had done something wrong, and it was not quite clear who exactly was in the wrong. My father, I said yesterday that we were upwards of 20, just the children, not his only. Well, we were only 6 at home. He would line us up and hear the case of each one of us. You would have to defend yourself in front of him. And if he was satisfied with your defense, he would say, okay, stand aside, stand aside, stand aside. And those who did not have cogent defenses would get chastisement. So instinctively, my assessment, but of course this is something that I did this in later years, I think it was that instinct, that love for law that he had, that he then directed me to become or to study law. I am very, very grateful to both my parents. And lastly, let me say that I am very happy to have been part of an institution that has been responsible for first creating the constitutional jurisprudence of this country and continuing to grow it over the years. I can only hope that in that process I have played my fair share. Well, I believe that I have, because the speeches from yesterday and today suggest that I did. Thank you very much.
Acting Deputy Chief Justice Madlanga, colleagues, distinguished guests, where I come from, we say at this stage of proceedings, we have reached the end of our program. May I once more extend our deepest gratitude to the Madlanga family, who for this 30 years of Justice Madlanga's sterling service to his country, which we have been talking about this morning, had to share their husband, father, brother, uncle, and family anchor with a nation that needed his wisdom. We recognize that service of that magnitude is never borne by one person alone. The heavy responsibilities, the late nights, the absences from home, these were sacrifices too. The court has been richer for his presence, and we know that his legacy is as much yours as it is his. To all the speakers who have paid tribute today, your words have painted a portrait of Justice Madlanga, not just as a fine judge and lawyer, but as a man of integrity, a loyal friend, a generous colleague, a peer whose wisdom commanded respect, and overall, a decent human being. Your stories have reminded us that behind the robes and the brilliant judgments is a person of warmth, wit, and unwavering principle. You have reaffirmed what many, if not all of us here, already knew, that Justice Madlanga is a jurist of a rare caliber and a human being of uncommon grace. ADCJ Bungani, I think that it would be safe to say that all the words that could have been said about you and have been said, and I dare say that you have a fair idea of what all those who will bury you one day in the distant future will say upon your grave. The tributes that have been paid here this morning have reminded us once more of the depth of your legal mind and the enduring impact of your work. Your voice, sharp, principled, and deeply humane, will remain a guiding force in the ongoing project of justice in South Africa. Uqatso ulufezile mashwabada siyazingca kakhulu ngawe. Siyabulela ngegalelo lakho. In keeping with African culture, there are refreshments out in the foyer. Please do have a sip of water before you leave the building. We adjourn. Thank you.
Minister, I'm Gilbert Marcus. I just wanted to introduce myself. I also wanted to tell you that I'm one of those who has not been paid for work done on this.